A brain injury can happen to anyone.
It happened to me.
It happened to me.
It happened to me.
It happened to me.
You can't always see a brain injury.
My brain injury changed my life.
OBIA has helped me.
In summer of 1980, our son Jeremy was struck by a passing motorist. He was on his bike. It was a number of months really before we really knew whether he would actually live. We were afraid of what the future held. And we're looking for answers. We were desperate. We were just looking for things that we could do that would make a difference in Jeremy's life, and trying to understand how, what the future held and how we could handle that. Elsie and I went to Brock University and sussed it out and found out that we could rent space there, and we started talking to people at Shadow, and we pulled together the first brain injury conference that was established through a non-professional group. What we discovered was that there was a lot more known about brain injury and its sequelae than anybody was talking about in Ontario. And I guess we were probably kind of relieved to know that there were answers. Those answers just weren't forthcoming in Ontario at that point. And I began to see that if anything was going to happen, there needed to be a concerted effort to make it happen. This wasn't going to, just because they were now aware of it because of this magical little conference and other conferences and discussions, there wasn't going to be any change. We made it happen. In hindsight, it's bizarre that it worked, but I think we were desperate, determined, and now life is very different. Any debilitating disease is an awful thing, and life is never good when you're faced with that. But now at least there's services for some, and there's really hope for all.
Day of my injury, I was at work in Toronto. I was the Director of Information and Communication Technology at Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto. But I was walking down the road, down the sidewalk, and crossing a road at a crosswalk, and a bus made an illegal left-hand turn and ran me over in the crosswalk.
I was working as a night cleaner at a hotel, and I was coming home on the graveyard shift, and that's the last thing I remember. I was approached by a gang of people, and it went a bit crazy, and then I was assaulted. That's how I received my brain injury. I was through an assault walking home from work. When I first woke up, I must have stated it's weird 1,000 times. Like, I didn't know how to walk, write, communicate, I couldn't show emotions. I was even stripped of my taste buds, which I hated because I love to eat. So, it was a shock to the system. I was in essence a newborn. I was in diapers, and it was quite, even to this day, it was quite weird that I couldn't control my body. Like, my brain was turned off, and I just hope it turned on again and everything would be restored, those functions. I'm a rehabilitation therapist at Toronto Rehab, and I work with fellow persons with a brain injury.
I was driving to work one morning, beautiful sunny day, not unlike today really, and that's the last thing I remember. I came up to an intersection, and was waiting for the light to turn green, and that's the last thing I remember. After that, life changed completely.
It was raining, and it being November, there were leaves all over the road, and because it was cold, there was a fine layer of black ice, and I lost control as I was going around the bend. I wasn't going fast, so an oncoming 4x4, as I crossed the yellow line, hit me on the passenger side, and I flew across the car, hit my head on the passenger window frame, the steel part, and I came within a foot of a cement light post. Yeah, I was in a coma for 2 weeks, and then they moved me to the step-down unit. No one knew anything about brain injury in 85, so I decided to school myself. I started my research. I took dance lessons for balance and coordination. I got myself a neurolinguistic programmer, which is holistic. It taught me to get the right side, the left side of my brain talking. And I was working at OBIA, and by that time, I had gotten married, and I am so proud of this, I went from a wheelchair to a cane to walking up the aisle in heels, low heels, but heels in 10 months. And this will really shock you. It took me 2 weeks to begin speaking again. No, the reason I say that is because I never shut up.
I didn't want to be alone up in my room by myself, so I wanted to be down in the main living area, but I wanted no one to talk and for the lights to be low and for everybody just to tiptoe around. So with 4 little kids at that time. So it didn't work so well. For me, it was about picking up the OBIA review in a doctor's office and reading a story that another survivor had written and thinking, oh my God, for the first time, someone else gets it. Someone else knows what I'm going through.
Cognitively, I have difficulties. That is what I am told would prevent me from returning to employment. That's what concerns me the most. That's one of my worst thought scenarios, is that I did try to return to work and I failed. I've got a fairly large reputation in the healthcare world, and to return to work and fail, that scares me. I don't want to ruin my reputation. So it's just having somebody that knows the system and knows where to turn and who to talk to and who to direct you to. You know, being new to brain injury and just, not knowing where to turn and having somebody to turn to made all the difference in the world.
I came into contact with OBIA when I had the idea to develop QCard, which is a mobile app designed to help people with brain injuries remember things and get organized and take control of our lives again. Well, their support was tremendous for me. the fact that they even thought it was something that was a good idea instantly gave me credibility to the whole brain injury community. And I think it's amazing that an organization that big actually can take time and sit down with a survivor and actually help them one-on-one, which I think is amazing. And so because of that, it's been a huge, huge impact on my life.
What I was fortunate to do was come across a very glossy issue that had been probably produced in, I think maybe in '95, and it was a pediatric issue of a magazine that OBIA had at that time, and it had a Humpty Dumpty on it with a helmet. Nobody had actually really put it in my hand. I was just blessed with being able to find it amongst all the old and dusty texts. I'm the OBIA #1 fan, so I'm regularly encouraging people to get their memberships for their magazines, letting people know about upcoming courses and conferences and things, and you can have a great life and still have an ABI. That connection makes the difference between surviving and thriving.
Pierre and I are now volunteering at their biannual conventions and meeting all sorts of people from all over Ontario, and that is a very, very special chance that very few people have. So I feel very privileged to be able to do that, and I really enjoy it. I've made some very, very special friends. I'm able to write articles for the newsletters, and that also gives me purpose and something to focus on. And that's so important to somebody with brain injury.
At the last conference, I had the best job because I was telling people where to go. And being a husband, that was really good to be on that side instead of being on the receiving end.
I'm not sure where I would be because I don't know if there would be a place that like OBIA that would give me the support that I needed when I needed it. And I don't know where I would be if I would be in a place like where I'm working now at Anagram that takes care of people that like me, or where I would be. I don't know where I would be, and it scares me to think where I would be if OBIA hadn't come to be. Now I've been on the Canadian national team, and I met my lovely wife, who I'm married to for 20 years, and now I have two beautiful children, and I love them all, and I'm just really happy with the way my life has turned out.
OBIA is important to me because OBIA truly makes a difference in the lives of those who have sustained a brain injury and their families. Because many times, family members and survivors of brain injury feel that there's nowhere to turn. And that's where OBIA comes into play. Brain injury really does become a stressor on the family because the person, obviously the person who sustained the injury is going through a lot, but also the family members as well, because they're trying to cope with a whole new world. And most people don't know very much about brain injury until it comes knocking at their door. Oftentimes when the injury is more severe, there's so many professionals involved, which is a good thing because we want the person to get better, but there's so many professionals involved. It can be very confusing for family members, and oftentimes they just don't know where to turn. And that's where OBIA is there for them. With family members, sometimes what we'll do is we'll connect them with a support group that might be in their area. So for instance, if we get a call from somebody, let's say in the London area, that's looking for some support, well, we know that the Brain Injury Association of that area has support groups in place for caregivers, let's say specifically. And so then we would connect that person with with that group, and that could be province-wide. And together we work with, we have 21 local community-affiliated associations across the province. So when those calls come in from across the province, we do try to connect them with their local associations. I have had survivors of brain injury say, OBIA has saved my life. So we go back to why is OBIA important to me? OBIA is important to me because it's important to the lives of those who have sustained brain injuries and their families.
OBIA really does bring us the consumer voice, helps us identify priorities, what's important for people, what needs to change, what are the challenges. So that allows us to really then develop research questions, gather the evidence, and then working with OBIA, put it back into practice. So certainly one of the key goals for them and ourselves is to work collaboratively in terms of making changes in the lives of people with ABI. We've worked on projects on their data systems. We've helped them sort of develop their Provincial Brain Injury Conference, which is an important platform to bring people together to discuss issues, look for solutions. They've been a collaborator on many of our research projects, so they sit on some of the research advisory processes. We have a consumer advisory group, and they've been part of that activity. So really it's been an ongoing engagement both at the project level and with the foundation.
I think that without OBIA, I would have to do the same thing over and over again when it comes to finding support. That with having support groups in place in different locations all across the province, this would have to be reinvented all the time when you need to get somebody together with somebody else. But having these support groups in place means that I can say, you know what, I know somebody who's talking the same way you are, who's experiencing the same things you are, and why don't we go together and I know you're going to get along well with these guys. And I don't have to do the education piece over and over and over again because OBIA sends out the same message all across the province.
What I'd really like to see is a heightened awareness of acquired brain injury in all levels of government, in our government agencies, in our social service agencies, and in the general public. So our population is in our justice system. They have issues with substance abuse, issues with mental health, but a lot of these sectors have operated in silos. So some substance abuse programs, for instance, would not take people into the program if they have a brain injury, or a brain injury program won't take somebody who has a substance abuse issue. So then where does our population land? And so what I'd really like to see is more education in these other fields so that we can better serve our population.
OBIA has helped me.